All right, so here he is, Dr. Picking. And it's thank you, sir, for joining us tonight.
Hi, Dr. Ben. Thanks very much for the invitation.
All
Yes, good
right,
to see you.
right, wonderful. So it's last week I took the liberty to visit the University of the West Indies because I wanted to connect with uh, persons uh, in what I call Jamaica's intellectual community to look at what are the works being done there, number one, and number two, to see how I can collaborate. I'm basically on a drive to promote what I call the Indigenous Caribbean Medicine Initiative, which is really an initiative that has a number of pronged approach to it. One of them is to see indigenous medicine, a structured, a formal approach to medicine coming out of Jamaica and the Caribbean, because we have a medicine that is so unique. There are millions of Jamaicans outside of Jamaica who this is the medicine that they have known. And I met so many persons at the university who have been doing phenomenal work. You are from what I believe to be the Natural Products Institute, and you have been doing so much work in the field of work from an academic perspective, and a lot of that work I believe is not featured. We have so many persons on tonight, and so many persons who will be watching after. What exactly is the Natural Products Institute?
Well, actually, to be contentious, it no longer exists.
As you were telling me, that it's now merged.
Yeah, so what's happened? NPI, the Natural Products Institute, had been going for a good number of years, but the university decided to merge it. So it's merged with a couple of other entities, particularly the Biotechnology Center. So that new center is now, I have to keep checking because I keep forgetting what we're called, but it's the Caribbean Center for Research in Bioscience.
Okay. And what type of work is carried on there?
Yeah, so I mean, everything to do with, I mean, a lot of our focus is on natural products, which could be plant-based, it could be marine-based, but predominantly terrestrial plants. I mean, Dr. Ben, as you probably said, my background is as a medical herbalist. I did my PhD at UWI. That's why
I'm trying to look for your bio. I lost it.
No problem.
I lost it.
So the work of what was the Natural Products Institute, now what we call CCRIB, so just to make it easier, so a mouthful otherwise, CCRIB, focuses on natural products. So we've got a broad spectrum of different academics doing different work. Notably, I mean, I think there's 7 or 8 of us. Dr. Sylvia Mitchell, she's been doing a lot of work over many years in Jamaica. She does a lot of work around tissue culture, very much on the biotechnology side. Prof. Delgado, who's my boss, she's been really doing phenomenal work. She set up probably one of the first, if not the first, cancer cell line laboratories in the Caribbean. So that's really looking at the bioactivity of many of our natural products and testing their anti-cancer properties. We've got Dr. Sheena Francis. Dr. Sheena Francis is really leading from the front. She's doing a lot of fantastic work on mosquito and what we call vector control, because the mosquito carries disease. So looking at the resistance, because the mosquitoes actually, they're smart little critters. They very quickly develop resistance. So we go out there and spray, and, well, I won't get into the political aspect of spraying, but most of our mosquitoes, particularly in Kingston, are resistant to the spray that is being fogged every few weeks. Right. So her work focuses on documenting that and looking at it from an international perspective, and then looking at whether there are natural products that we could actually be utilizing either in combination with those chemicals or in place of those chemicals. So her work is really good. We recently attracted an international ethnobotanist. She's formerly at the New York Botanical Garden, Dr. Ina Vanderbroek. She and I have been doing a lot of work together. So Dr. Vanderbroek is now part of our team, which is a real coup for us because she's very well respected internationally. We have Professor Marcia Roy, who's been leading a lot of work across Jamaica for many, many years in the Biotechnology Center. And then my work is, I trained as a medical herbalist. So when I turned up in Jamaica, they weren't quite sure what to do with me. So I actually went out into the field and did something called a TRAMIL survey, which, we can talk more about, but that was the first
and that's
survey.
where I first came across your name.
Yeah.
Because and for those who are watching, a medical herbalist, what is it? Why would a person train to become a medical herbalist? What's the purpose of a medical herbalist? Because there are many persons who are watching who may not know who a medical herbalist is, or what's the purpose or the function of a medical herbalist.
Okay, so I trained at a university in London. I went back as a mature student, like yourself, Dr. Ben. I trained initially as a naturopath, and then everyone kept saying to me, "No, but you have to have a speciality." So, I went into each of the clinics and I sat, and the one that really hit me was a case actually of a young woman with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. And I sat in that clinic, which was a teaching clinic, and this beautiful young woman came in and she said, "I have to stop taking all of my herbs because I'm pregnant." And everyone was really excited, and I couldn't kind of understand why all the excitement. But apparently she'd been coming to the clinic for 2 years.
Wow.
When she first came to the clinic, she was losing her hair. This was a young woman in her 20s. She was going bald. She had a lot of acne. She was starting to get body hair, classic symptoms of PCOS. And they worked with her using botanical medicine. And that was the result. Full head of hair, no acne. And the young woman had fallen pregnant, gotten pregnant.
Wow.
So,
a lot of, sorry to cut you off, but a lot of medical herbalists also work between medical doctors and herbalists. So they kind of work as interpreters in helping medical doctors are not trained to use herbs. So medical herbalists kind of understand the language of herbalists, and they basically help medical doctors, especially in clinics where there is both allopathic medicine and naturopathic medicine, that you work as a bridge between helping medical doctors know how to work along with naturopath.
And you've nailed it there. And I think that in an ideal world, we would have a fully integrative healthcare system. And that was the vision for the School of Integrated Health. We had the largest teaching clinic in Western Europe. So, so the idea is you work collaboratively with medical doctors. You wouldn't, take somebody off their meds unless you'd consulted with their medical team, and you do it in an integrated way.
Right.
But as a medical herbalist, the training is pretty rigorous. I had to do 500 clinic hours taking patients and working in that way. So the TRAMIL, taking that theme of integrative medicine, the TRAMIL database, which has been going since 1984, is this amazing network across the Caribbean. Lots of Caribbean islands, but also a lot of the countries that border the Caribbean basin. And the vision there was people are using plant medicine. They're keeping themselves healthy. They're treating health conditions. How do we take that knowledge and actually integrate it more in each of those countries into the primary healthcare system? And that was the vision for the TRAMIL network. And so the starting point is actually to do surveys and then identify the most useful plants that people themselves identify, and then look at, okay, well, let's go into the laboratory and, perhaps we can prove. We don't need to prove it if there's a long history, but we can give data support. We can show that there is actually efficacy there. And in some cases, not very many, but in 1 or 2 cases, we may pick up a plant that is toxic, or a particular part of a plant is toxic, and then we can warn people not to, use that particular plant. So the TRAMIL network has been going for 40 odd years, and it's all volunteers.
Wow.
That's the amazing thing, and it's still going. So now there's, I think, 25 countries have completed surveys, and there's about 12 countries where laboratories are doing, this work.
So you're saying TRAMIL has been has been tasked with this responsibility in going across the islands of the Caribbean and identifying and recording the medicinal herbs, because
Yeah,
that's part of the problem here in Jamaica and the Caribbean. One of the reasons why we don't have a robust, medical herbal system is because we haven't done a very good job in identifying the herbs and identifying the medicinal components of the herbs. Whereas traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, they've done a pretty good job in documenting and recording that. I mean, maybe it was in place, and during slavery it was destroyed, or maybe there was a effort during the period of slavery to prevent recording from happening. But you're saying TRAMIL from the 80s has been doing a phenomenal job in going across Jamaica and the Caribbean and recording medicinal herbs.
yeah. I mean, if I'm brutally honest, the TRAMIL network, because it's volunteers, the TRAMIL network could be doing so much more. Now, that's not a criticism of TRAMIL. The challenge always, as you know, Dr. Ben, the challenge with our area, botanical medicine, is funding. And I can't emphasize that enough. It's the challenge of funding. And as you say, for cultural reasons, the Caribbean and Africa has not had culturally, because it's the culture in Africa is basically connection with the ancestors and that knowledge passing down, and it's an oral. And some people would say it's not just oral, it's actually now in the present connecting with ancestral knowledge. So a lot of stuff hasn't been written down, but so the challenge now is to start to document that and put it into what we call pharmacopoeias. And a lot of those plants were, like, take for example sarsaparilla. Sarsaparilla, as everybody knows, is a really useful plant that was picked up going back to 1680, I think, and was documented and actually was put into the European pharmacopoeias and recorded because it was used to treat syphilis. And in fact, it was listed in those pharmacopoeias. And we can talk more about what a pharmacopoeia is. That was listed until 1948 with, the advent of antibiotics. So, yeah.
And so so right now we're basically on our way to seeing a number of, we're coming out of that stage of obscurity. So guide us now, NPI, Natural Products Institute, because that sounds like an entity that goes beyond just identifying herb and the medicinal, but also helping to convert those herbs into derivatives or byproducts that we can now utilize. Because part of my challenge, Dr. Picking, as you know, is that I believe that for a country that has gained independence, we haven't done enough to medicinally take care of ourselves, and we have not done enough to feed ourselves. And part of that, is because we have a lot of knowledge, because I came to you and I found out that there's a reservoir of knowledge there, but that knowledge is not being translated to practical implementations that benefit the Jamaican people. And so that is why on this show, I want to get the scientific community, I want Jamaicans to know about what is available at the University of the West Indies, and how we can put sometimes pressure on our electorates to put in place structured programs that can result in meaningful, tangible results for the Jamaican people. We just lost Dr. Picking. Okay. For those of you that, let me just take some questions. I am extremely interested in learning about herbs as well as the whole science of herbal medicine. Then you need to go to our Welton. You need to go to our website or YouTube channel. And there's a link in the description of our YouTube of this video. It's entitled Kinder Wellness Community. That's where you can start. We actually do have a college, Boston Institute of Natural Medicine. We're doing some restructuring there, so the courses are not up, but we're gonna get them up. I heard somebody say that they've been to our website, and I don't know which site, because we do have some sites that are not really functional. But I just put the site in the description. I just put in the description the site that you need to go, which is our ICM Wellness Marketplace. That's the site that you need to go to. And that will get you up and running. So ICMWellnessMarketplace.com. That is the site to be. Dr. Picking is back. Welcome, Dr. Pickings. Sorry we just lost you a while ago. We know that these technicalities will come up. So as you were saying, so to talk to us with NPI, what's their involvement with the Scientific Research Council, the Bureau of Standard, or is there any collaboration or connection with these agencies?
Yeah, I mean, wherever we can, we collaborate. You know, if there's a project that comes in, it might be a collaboration externally, it might be a collaboration internationally. You know, at the end of the day, if you've got a particular project, you go where you can get access to the equipment and you've got funding, and sometimes that may be on campus with other academic staff, or so, you know, we'll collaborate a lot with chemistry, with basic medical science.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a raft of different projects ongoing. Chemistry have done, I mean, there's a very, very good, I recommend that she actually updates it, but there's a great article that was written by Dr. Sylvia Mitchell, which is a review of all of the medicinal plant research going back to 1948, I think, up until about 2007, just before I arrived in Jamaica. But she does and it lists, you know, what plants have been researched and what type of research. That's a great paper.
Okay.
I can send you that, Dr. Ben, and you can share that with your.
Yeah, I'd love to share that. And I want to big up Dr. Sheena Francis.
Yeah.
I was there recently, and she gave me a tour of the facility, and she shared with me something that was phenomenal. And that's a publication. I think it's a book. She shared me a book that I believe every listen to me now, guys. If you're watching, every single person that is watching this recording or watching this live, who is involved in natural products, who sells natural products. And I'm going to ask Dr. Picking to tell me. There's a book that she shared with me, and I don't know, it was maybe one of the most valuable tools that I saw when I came to NPI. And that is a book that is published that guides practitioners or persons as it relates to the contraindications of herbs and drugs. That's the book. Hold it up a little closer so we can see it. It's called Potential Drug Interactions. So I need to get a copy of that book, and I'm not gonna stop talking about that book on the show, because every medical doctor in Jamaica needs a copy of that book, and every single person in Jamaica who sells any natural product, whether it's something that you blend or anything, every dispensary, every herb shop, every store in Jamaica that has a health food store should have a copy of that book, because what it does is that it's based on extensive research, and it guides persons, herbs enthusiasts like those on the channel like right now, or practitioners like myself, as it relates to how to safely and responsibly take herbs from Jamaica and the Caribbean. Tell me a little bit about that book.
Yeah, so the book, so when I first arrived in Jamaica, so one of my supervisors, you know, when you're doing a PhD, you have two supervisors. So Dr. Sylvia Mitchell was one supervisor, and we did that field work, and that was her main focus. And then Professor Delgado was doing some really interesting work in drug interactions. So how medicinal plants and drugs interact. Now that can sometimes be used as a, you know, can be kind of weaponized sometimes to say, oh, don't take bush. And I saw that firsthand. Mm-hmm. You know, I saw that firsthand when we went around doing the survey. I interviewed an elderly retired farmer who was crippled with arthritis. And he said, oh, it's only started to get really bad in the last couple of years. And when I asked him why, because he said his doctor put him on a medication and then told him not to take bush. And I said, well, what bush were you taking? And he said turmeric, ginger. And the reality is, if the doctor had had this book and had read up on it, he wouldn't have told him not to take those plants. And those plants were ideal as anti-inflammatories for those health conditions. So the idea of the book is, as you said, to do studies. And the basis of this book is mainly what's called test tube or in vitro work, where you actually test. So when I'd finished doing the TRAMIL work, working very, very closely with Prof. Delgado, because she'd done a lot of this work already on, we shortlisted 10 plants and we ran screening on 10 plants and then focused on a couple. So that her work and then other work, this isn't just our work, this is other work as well. But the challenge is a lot of the main plants that are used, like ginkgo and garlic, turmeric, ginger, those plants are very well documented in terms of drug interactions. So doctors can,
especially in other cultures.
But the same is true for that plant here as it is for others. The challenge that we've got is a lot of our plants have never been researched. So how do we take like cerasee and other plants that we use extensively? How do we look at those plants? So that's really what we were doing with this. And Dr. Ben, again, comes down to funding. You know, we were able to print, I think, 200 or 300 copies of this with a local printer, and we gave them away to a lot of pharmacists and doctors. But, you know, we really want to be able to update this and take it further afield and make sure that every,
And that's why we have this show. There are a number of persons watching in the diaspora. A lot of them want to know how they can help. These are ways that you can help. And I'll give you Dr. Picking's email address so you can reach out to him directly. You can reach out to him directly, and you can contact him and find out if this is something that you could benefit from. What's your email address, Dr. Picking? Let me just.
So David
dot
David Picking 03 at UWIMONA
at UWI
MONA, all one word, UWIMONA .edu .jm.
All right, so I'm gonna put it up on the screen so that persons can email Dr. Picking, and you can reach out to him. This is a book that I would love to, and let me know if you'd be interested in partnering with Dr. Picking. I would love to start out by getting more of this book in circulation. So there's a lot of research being done. So this is drug, nutrient, herb, nutrient, drug interactions. I mean, this was written by Jonathan Treasure, who's one of America's kind of top herbalists. But this book is pretty old now. But a lot of this information's out there and it's being updated, even to the point of doing clinical studies. That would be the ideal, where you can actually do a clinical study with healthy volunteers and test. Right. That brings us to our we have an entity, a community called the Kinder Wellness Community. I see 53 persons on the live. There's a link in the description to join the Kinder Wellness Community, and that's a part of our goal. Part of our goal with the Kinder Wellness Community is to have a number of subgroups in it. One of them would be the scientific community. So one of the reasons why I came to the university is to get members of the scientific community to be a part of the Kinder Wellness Community, as well as the general public. What I want members of the scientific community to do is to volunteers, those persons would have the know-how as to how to carry out clinical studies, the different skill sets that are necessary for such a venture. And then the members of the public now would be those persons that would volunteer to participate in clinical studies. And so it's because part of the challenge with clinical studies is that there's so much money involved. But if we have persons who would volunteer to be a part of clinical studies, and if we have members of the scientific community who would actually conduct those clinical studies, then what we have is two groups that would help to validate more herbs. If we are going to successfully bring natural medicine in Jamaica and the Caribbean to where it ought to be, we are going to need the scientific community's involvement, and we're going to need the general public. And so that's part of the goal of the Kinder Wellness community. And so there's a link in the Telegram where you can join it. And then as the members of the scientific community come on board, then this is one of the projects. But right now, what I'm looking on, Marie's asking, what's the cost of the book? What's the cost of the book? Or do we have available copies of the book?
No, that was the problem. Yeah, because we produced it. We produced it locally, and then we haven't been able to get the funding yet to reprint what we did would be good. But obviously, if we could, we'd want to edit it and update it, because it was a while ago that we published this.
Okay. What about electronic versions of it? Would
Yeah, we need. That was another option, is to go electronic. But yeah, we have to look at those different options.
Right. So we want to look at them. But of course, this is a book that I believe that I would want on my desk. I would definitely want a physical copy on my desk.
And that was the whole reason we did it specially coated, so pharmacists can be spilling stuff on it, and it literally, I don't know if you can see that, it literally gives the list one by one, different plants, and so it's showing you grapefruit juice.
So that we can see it.
So it's showing you.
Right. Okay. So it has the different sections and compartments.
Yeah.
That are needed.
And as we talked about, the pharmacopoeia is pharmacopoeia is made up of monographs, which are detailed descriptions of a plant medicine or a pharmaceutical drug, and part of that description would be the drug interaction profile of that herb, and as you mentioned earlier, the contraindications, whether you can take during pregnancy, all of those kind of health and safety.
That's unnecessary. Before you go, because we're almost finished with this segment, talk to us about, without going into detail, we're gonna have to maybe get you back to talk more about this. The policy as it relates to, because you and I, we have talked about it so many times, the policy as it relates to the future of natural products here in Jamaica. We saw some recent, and I'm gonna maybe next week or so, I'm gonna talk a little bit about natural products in Canada. We have a lot of persons who are on the show tonight from Canada, and a lot of them may not know, but a lot of them are going to be impacted by it. Tell us a little bit about the future of natural products in Jamaica and the policies surrounding that.
Well, just very, very quickly, I mean, there's a 25-year history, and I have to big up people like Dr. Diane Robertson, who's, up there in age, and she worked tirelessly with previous governments to get natural products recognized and to get herbs recognized. So actually, under Portia Simpson Miller, the Portia Simpson Miller government commissioned a group, NCST, the National Council, I can't remember the acronym, but NCST, under Professor Errol Morrison, and they pulled together a working group. The top people at Ministry of Health, their lawyers, and then some academics. I was on it, my Professor Delgado was on it, and industry players, all to look at what would be a model that could work in Jamaica. Because right now what you have is the Food and Drug Act. So Dr. Ben, as you know, if you take moringa powder and put it in a tea bag.
Yes. it's a food. Hello? Seems like we have lost Dr. Picking again. Dr. Picking? All right, so so there are some serious development in Canada as it relates to natural medicine, and one of the reasons why I mentioned that is because Jamaica, the platform or the template, I should say, for the natural products, the policies that are being crafted were based on the Canada model, and so it's going to be interesting to know what is in. I would love to know exactly what is in that policy, because let me tell you what happened in Canada, while Dr. Picking is coming on. Recently in Canada, they passed a bill, and this was snuck into the population, where some sweeping regulations have been put in place, and these sweeping regulations basically have made it difficult. By next year, it's going to be difficult for persons who want natural products to get access to it. It's going to be difficult for persons who sell natural products to have natural products. As a matter of fact, I was so frightened when I saw what Canada was doing, that this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this show, because a lot of persons don't know what's coming. There are some serious policies that are coming from the last situation that we had, from the last health crisis that we had. The persons in power made some serious observations. And so from the observation, I can tell you, for example, that they realized that a lot of persons did not opt to take the recommended, the recommended, I don't want to use the word, I don't want to use the V word, but you know what I'm talking about. A lot of persons did not opt to take the joke because they had alternatives. The alternatives were available in herb shops, and the alternatives were available in natural remedies. Well, they made a note of that. And so they have made some serious, I don't know, they might kill me for what I want to say to you, but they've made some serious adjustments. And these adjustments are based on the policies. One of them is that they have forcefully reduced or forced companies that produce nutraceutical products that help people. They have forced them to reduce it to food grade. I'm not going to use tonight's show to go into it, but I want to talk about it because there are some serious, when I say serious, there are some serious repercussions coming. And so one of the only solutions for that is for persons to learn herbs for themselves. The people like me who help people, they have a slew of policies that will prevent us from doing so. The companies that have these products available, they have a slew of policies for those companies not to have it anymore. And so, you know, but Dr. Picking is back. So let me bring him on. And we're not going to go into that tonight, but you were talking about the policies as it relates to nutraceuticals, or what they call natural products in Jamaica.
It's a double-edged sword, Dr. Ben, as you were saying. I just picked up the last bit of it. I mean, France, I think there's some legislation that's being passed in France, which I think is making people very, very nervous in this industry. But leaving that to one side, but the goal in Jamaica was to amend the Food and Drug Act, and that amendment has actually been sitting on Minister Tufton's desk since 2020. Now, I know he got busy with other stuff, but the hope is, but as I say, it's a double-edged sword. But if Jamaica can amend,
would you be willing, because I know that you're one of the advisors on that, would you be willing, without implicating yourself, would you be willing? Because I don't know, is it possible for the Jamaican people, is it possible for us to have an idea as it relates to what was in that policy? Can we know? Because in the case of Canada, they just implemented some policies on the people of Canada, and they didn't know until it became effective. Is there any way for us to know what is in that policy?
From what I understand, they're moving the goalposts. So the goalposts are actually very similar to the policy and the framework that we felt actually was most appropriate for Jamaica was actually mirroring the Canadian system, because it's based on,
you're saying that when we decided to implement a policy, we were looking at the
Canadian model. Yeah, because the Canadian model is based, it recognizes, there's a section in there that recognizes traditional knowledge and gives credence to that. And then it's all about risk benefit analysis. You're looking at, if there's a history of traditional use and safe use in human beings, then the level of rigor is less because the level of risk is less. So the policy was actually, in our view, made a lot of sense. And remember, we had pharmacists sitting on the panel, we had people like myself and others in the industry, and also people that are involved in the ganja industry. And I know that some of my colleagues in the ganja industry are very keen for this amendment to the Food and Drug Act because it would become the food, natural health products, natural health products and Drug Act. The challenge would be if minister, which I think he is going to gazette it and it will become law. That's our hope. The challenge for us then is to ensure that the goalposts are not then moved. Okay, because I think the framework is a reasonably good one when you look at international regulation. And I can send you, I wrote a book chapter on international regulation of botanicals. So yeah, so I think if we can get that enactment, as long as the Jamaican government then doesn't subsequently change the goalposts, then it gives, particularly ganja and other nutraceuticals, it gives us a framework within which we can work more inclusively and safely.
And we wonder why would a document like that be sitting on the minister's desk now for 4 years? Such a critical document.
It's the process. I mean, once it's been approved, a ministry has signed off on it. So a ministry approved it, their lawyers approved it, and then it goes to the minister, and then there's a series of steps. But I believe, and I'm not an expert, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe that it's at the final stage. And I think, again, I'm not an expert, but I believe that the Governor General, in his speaking of the business for the next Parliament, actually spoke about this enactment of the amendment to the Food and Drug Act. So I think it is in the pipeline to be enacted.
Okay, all right.
But if people have got a hotline to Minister Tufton, then they can call him and say, Minister, please make sure that it goes through, because I think it is very important. It's important for ganja and the medicinal industry around ganja. It's important for all of our other plant-based medicines.
All right. Thank you so very much, Dr. Picking, for being on with us. We've actually been on longer than we anticipated, but it was very enlightening, and I know we'll definitely invite you to come back on, because our goal is to highlight the work of NPI, now merged, as well as any other entity whose work is related to herbs and the advancement of herbs.
We have to talk about GWG and that.
And we have to talk about big up Nicola. Big up Nicola Shirley, one of my most loved person in the world. Big up Nicola. And we have to talk about GWG.
We have to talk about that, Dr. Ben, because that's the basis, the clean, getting our herbs clean and being sustainably harvested. That's a critical part. When we develop, to expand what we're doing and everything that you want to do, we have to have that groundwork in place. And I think, I
want to talk about, because the thing about Nicola and GWG and Source Farm and your Ujima market and the work that's going on over there is that Nicola is the type of person who she's like the opposite to me. I mean, she's like the opposite of what the University of the West Indies is supposed to set up to do. So rather than talking, Nicola is doing. And then the result that she produces forces more people to come on board.
And that's why we've signed the MOU between GWG and the University of the West Indies.
Yeah.
So that's the focus. A lot of my work is now focused with Nicola on that practical groundwork.
Application.
How do we get things that are practically applicable to support the development of the nutraceutical industry in Jamaica?
And let me just give some folks an idea of as what we talk about practical application. So Nicola Shirley, over there at GWG and Source Farm, she has successfully not only advocated what we call natural farming or farming based on eco-friendly principles. But she's one of the person that has, along with her team, that have worked to set up not only a farmer's market, not only to get persons theoretically, but she has successfully got training for persons who want to do organic farming. So she has successfully, through partnership with Hard Trust NTA, set up and implement a training program where persons can now be trained in organic farming. That organic farming principle has now attracted a number of farmers who now not only practice organic farming, but also have their organically farmed products available in Kingston. So if you're in Kingston or you're near Kingston, I want you to go over to Hope Gardens on a Saturday and support the farmers at Ujima market. It's a team of clean people. Anything that you put in your mouth, you can be assured that it's properly grown, because the people who do this don't just do it because of money. This is how they live their lives, and basically they're just sharing it with the rest of Jamaica. And not only in Kingston, but Ujima has plans to open a farmer's market in every parish across Jamaica, making organically grown clean foods available in supermarkets. So I want you to go over to the Ujima market on a Saturday at the Hope Gardens. David may know specifically where at Hope Gardens to maybe help me out here. But I know we'll get Nicola on the show. This is a woman that you have to meet. I just recently, David and I were classmates in a recent permaculture course that she had. Yeah. So I mean, and there were persons from the parish council, there were persons from different government agencies that were there. So this is a practical application that we're talking about. And so I want to big up Nicola Shirley and her team there at Source Farm and at GWG and the work that is doing there. So, we're going to showcase. This is a platform where the goal is to showcase to the rest of Jamaica and the rest of the world everything related to herbs and the advancement of natural living here in Jamaica. So I want to thank you again, David, for being on. It was so informative having you on tonight, and we look forward to having you again. You and I are going to talk, and we're going to have to talk to be very strategic as it relates to what we need to share. Somebody, and it says at the first gate, not the gate after Mona.
Yeah.
So it's at the first
gate. Before the main gate. Before the main gate. Yeah.
Thank you, Annie. So if you want to go, there are foods, there are juices, there are so many things that are there. And if you're interested in becoming an organic farmer, then you can reach out to David. David, is very connected to GWG, and we'll give you the information for Nicola and GWG and let you know how you can be a part of what's happening there.